Hello and welcome to this live. I'm just gonna figure something out. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on the time you're watching this. Today we're gonna talk about the intense Venus-Mars square, which is coming through this week. Let me just pull up some of my information, because for some reason the file I have open is incorrect. So bear with me as we get through this the live about Venus squaring Mars at the same time as Mercury is retrograde. How is everyone doing? Where are you guys watching from? Let me know how your Mercury retrograde is going. I've definitely had a pretty crazy experience just this morning when I woke up and saw that my Instagram account was taken by someone else. They changed my login name. They started reaching out to people, and it seemed like they were like pretending to buy stuff. Maybe they were actually buying stuff, but they were messaging a whole bunch of people under through my account, but under a different name. So that was kind of intense. So today we're talking about the Venus Mars square that goes exact on July 23rd, bringing a lot of intense energy as two parts of your life collide. The masculine, the feminine energy. It could also represent conflicts between men and women. The energy, sort of the struggle to connect with the pull to separate, conflicts and friction and passion that can show up. Hi, Yolette from Naples, Florida. Hi, SB. Yeah, I ended up changing the password, and luckily it looks like the account is back. It is back under my control. Okay, let me just give me a second. I am trying to make sure everything is going. It's been a bit of a chaotic morning because of all this drama and tension. Yeah, are you guys noticing Mercury retrograde? One of my computers also stopped working. It no longer is turning on. So definitely a lot of chaotic things happening. Ariel, hi, Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Yeah, I'm glad that got sorted out, which is pretty lovely. SP says, yes, I am noticing things like that. Okay, so before we dive in, just the usual spiel, right? I'm a traditional Western astrologer. I work in whole sign house system. I recommend listening to your horoscopes for rising sign when we get to the horoscope portion. If you enjoy my work, like and subscribe, right? You can also leave me a comment. You can say thank you by doing, I think there is sort of option to show your support next to the chat window. You can always do that. You can book a reading with me on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. There is on my website, you can go to services. You can see a variety of readings that I offer as soon as it loads. There we go. So there are natal chart reading, there's year ahead readings, there are shorter readings like express reading. Here it is. You could also get a predictive horoscope looking at your year coming up for solar return. That's best done around your birthday, or a year ahead reading can be done at any point. I am also teaching a course, as many of you know. You can also register for my course in the services. It begins on September 6th, and we still have spots available in this portion of my website. You can see what exactly we will cover, things like planets, signs, houses, dignity, synodic cycles, combustion, and more. And the goal is to teach you how to read natal charts. And you can also see the sessions available on my website. So thank you for listening. And we're going to look at this upcoming Venus-Mars square. I am going to share my screen with you, and we're going to dive in. And if at any point you want to let me know where you're watching from, how is your Mercury retrograde going, please share. That is always interesting to hear, I think, for many of us, because by hearing about experiences of other people, we can avoid some of the downfalls of our own experience, right? Okay, so I'm just gonna pull up the screen and make sure we are all looking at the same thing. So do let me know if you can see my screen and if you can see the date, today's date, July 21st. Hopefully it is showing up for you. So today we are on July 21st, and as you can see, here's Venus. She is at 18 degrees, 57 minutes of Gemini, and there's Mars at 19 degrees, 55 minutes of Virgo. So the two are already within a degree range from one another. The exact Venus-Mars square happens 2 days from now, approximately, on July 23rd. And it goes exact at 4:23 a.m. Eastern, so corrected for your time zone. And there we go. Venus is at 21 degrees Gemini. Mars is at 29 degrees Virgo. And the two get at it, square each other. So it's exact, like I said, on July 23rd, 4:23 a.m. But we begin to feel it. We started feeling it last week, at the end of last week, Thursday, July 17th, and then it goes pretty much the entirety of this week until next Monday. In order to understand it, I like to touch on the general nature of the planets. And after I do this, we're going to look at all the 12 zodiac signs and give you sort of insights on what to watch out for, what kind of what you can expect. So definitely stick around for that, because I will talk about it for each zodiac sign. And like I said, I do recommend listening to the rising sign, because that tends to be what most people write horoscopes for. So definitely stick around for that. Okay. I don't know if you guys are sending any comments, but my chat seems to have been frozen. Hopefully they will catch on. Ariel says Mercury retrograde has been very emotional and isolating for me. I have a Virgo rising. Okay, it's happening in your 12th house, so it's probably asking you to separate loneliness from being alone, right? And find ways to enjoy being alone, and perhaps also figure out who is in your corner, who is like your true support system when you need them. Okay, so back to Venus squaring Mars, right? Venus is the planet of connection. Venus is the lesser benefic in astrology. It is connected to having a good day, to having everything go your way, eating delicious food, encountering people that you love, having joyful, pleasant experiences. Mars is the lesser malefic. So if Venus represents having good experiences, Mars represents friction and conflict and tension. And Mars is the planet of action. It's a warrior. It's connected to metals and blades and severing and separating things. And the square, you can see it right here between Venus and Mars. We have this red line. All of that, by the way, we will talk about in my astrology course. So do sign up, do take advantage of learning astrology. All of that on my website. So square is a tense aspect. Square is said to be of the nature of Mars, actually. Square is when two planets are, imagine two cars at an intersection coming to a stop and they cannot go, right? Like one has to sort of compromise, let go, release, so the other one can take charge and take action. And so they kind of have to agree to disagree on many levels. In aspects like this, pretty much in all aspects except for conjunction and opposition, right? Because conjunction and opposition have a different nature. We have a planet that is in superior position, meaning that it has more strength and it has the final say on many levels. And then we have, so one is superior, one is inferior. And in this specific example, Venus is in a superior, so she's like in a more winning position because Venus rises first. If you spin the circle clockwise in the way planets actually rise over the eastern horizon, you will see that Venus has already risen. She's above the horizon, and Mars is still below the horizon. So the planet that rises first has more of a say. So here we have Venus, the planet of connection, promising to figure things out, right? It's better than if, let's say, Venus was in Sagittarius and Mars was in Virgo, then Mars would have been the planet that has the final say. So that is positive, that is supportive. What are some things we can expect? First of all, feminine versus masculine, right? Venus represents all things feminine, women, yin energy, people who identify as women, right? It represents being sort of more receptive, versus Mars is masculine, aggressive, young energy. So here we have being pleasant, being joyful, being maybe just like less active versus being aggressive, right? It can reveal any friction that you haven't been dealing with, that you've been trying to people please and avoid. All of that might pop up with Venus Mars square, leading to relationship difficulties, all kinds of relationships, romantic, but not necessarily. It can reveal tension in a healthy relationship. This can result in a passionate couple of days, right? Passionate lovemaking doesn't have to be dramatic. But if a relationship is not doing so well, then Venus squaring Mars can definitely push it over the edge. If you're single, this can encourage you to go out there and date. But if you start a relationship at this point, you have to keep in mind that Mercury is retrograde, which will affect the new relationship. It may bring miscommunications, misunderstandings into a relationship. And you have to keep in mind that the new relationships, partnerships, contracts signed, agreements will likely be colored by this Venus squaring Mars energy. So it might have that frictive aura around it. So expressing energy through competition could show up as well. It is, of course, best to compromise and figure out how to work together, right? Expressing energy through sport, through sex, through exercise, creative pursuits, that could be great as well. Watch out for sort of technological difficulties, for maybe some careless accidents and things like that. We have to keep in mind that Mars is still very closely conjunct the South Node. So the energy of losing its head, is prevalent. And I have a video on that if you want to learn more about Mars conjunct South Node. What is interesting to me is both Venus and Mars are in the mutable signs. So the potential for compromise, the potential for flexibility and adjustment is there, and it's really strong. Also, both of them are ruled by Mercury. So if Venus is in Gemini, which is a lot more young Venus, it wants to explore new ideas, meet new people, have variety. She's very curious, very playful. Mars is in this perfectionist, analytical, detail-oriented, a little bit type A personality Virgo. But they both can be flexible, right? They both are mutable. They're both adjustable. They're both ruled by Mercury. So they can figure out some kind of way of variety together with structure. And that's maybe where the compromises lie. If you're dealing with friction in relationships, creative projects, just try to find ways to like explore and problem solve in this way that's not too tightly controlling, which Mars and Virgo may lean into very strongly, and not in a way that's too ADHD, which Venus and Gemini can do. The Mercury being retrograde, I think, is representative of us needing to rethink these also concepts of masculine and feminine and what they represent, and where maybe it's okay to express your anger, right? Where is it okay to be for like a woman? Let's say we're talking about like a very typical woman who maybe was raised not to speak up, not to like ruffle any feathers, but like I think the Mercury retrograding in Leo, which is the sign of like identity and self and authenticity and sort of being heart-centered, it's being like, well, but what if sometimes you have to express your frustration to make things better? And so relationships will be tested in that regard, where strong relationships will only benefit from it. Truth might get revealed, right? Friction brings kind of deeper connection if you're able to get through it. But then if you're not, of course, there's more of a challenge, more of a difficult potential. So I'm going to look at the 12 rising signs. Again, recommend listening to your rising sign. If you're enjoying this live, don't forget to like, subscribe, do all the nice things. You can say thank you by tipping me as well. Not required, but always welcome. And if you're looking for more astrology, book a reading, join my natal astrology course. All of that is on my website. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have any control about the commercials. Yolette, you're saying 2 commercials played on my end. For the lives, I'm just talking to you, and YouTube is deciding what to do with commercials. Let's say, Привет, Radostina. You're saying you're from Bulgaria, but you live in the UK. Do you also speak Russian? Is that why Привет? Ariel says, all very true. I am on leave from work with a head injury, and there is a nasty rumor going on about me at work. I don't want to go back. I will be going to the beach today for some joy. That sounds awesome. Enjoy the beach. Radostina says, my Mars retrograde is at 28 degrees Libra in the 5th, being my highest planet. When it was retrograde last year, I felt amazing. I was in my home country, and I didn't want it to come back. That's interesting. Would you return there permanently? Tiger Tarot says, hello there. Been really enjoying your videos, and I'm currently stuck astrology. I assume you're saying kind of diving deep into astrology and so in love with it. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Oh, studying. Okay. Mercury. Indeed, Mercury is creating some confusion in our communication. For those of you who cannot get enough of astrology, do consider learning it with me. 3 months, we're gonna create personal relationships. We're gonna learn to read natal charts. We're gonna talk about all of these things that I am talking about in my videos: aspects, zodiac signs, houses, planetary cycle. There's so much more to it than meets the eye, and there's so much more to you. So by learning astrology, you can dive deeply into yourself. Okay, let's begin by looking, or rather not begin, let's look at the 12 zodiac signs and see what this might suggest and mean for you. So I am gonna take a second to start taking timestamps so I can share it for those who are watching the recording. So let's talk about Aries rising. If you are an Aries rising, we have Venus in your 3rd house in a square to Mars in the 6th house. And Venus is the ruler of your house of relationships. She's also the ruler of your house of personal finances, while Mars is the ruler of your house of self and your house of shared finances. Conflicts, disagreements around money. Very obvious way, right? Tensions between you and your partner, because Mars is you, Venus is your significant other. On a house level, Venus is in the third house and she wants to learn new things. She wants to have a good time. She maybe has plans to like have a party, get together. She represents some kind of desire to be a diplomat, to harmonize, to problem solve, right? And Mars in the sixth house might suggest a busy workload, some kind of friction that you're dealing with in the work environment, maybe problems that you need to solve. There may be verbal altercations, disagreements that no matter how much you're trying to solve are somewhat difficult. With Mercury being in the fifth house, I think the goal is to have a good time, even if you're not agreeing on the best way to do it. So try to operate from the place of compromise, try to figure out how to express yourself in the most clear way, right? We're sort of dealing with this conflict and friction as Mercury, the planet of communication, is moving backwards. So Mercury, in a way, doesn't really have the ability to help us as much. So communicate very slowly, navigate any conflicts and tension with siblings or colleagues or any other type of like, tension very carefully. So the best would be to speak slowly and carefully and avoid any drama, avoid sort of provoking drama. And yeah, be ready when it comes to like financial disagreements, tensions of values, tensions with other people. And if we have any Aries here, do share what you think. Radestina says, my great grandma is Russian. My birth chart shows that I have to do things outside of Bulgaria. Maybe, but not soon. Okay. Look how international you are. Where are you now, Radestina? Where do you live? So moving on to Taurus rising. For Taurus rising, Venus in the second house is squaring Mars in the fifth house, and Venus rules the first house of identity, the sixth house of work. Mars rules the seventh house of relationships and the 12th house of escaping, spirituality, mental health. So Venus in the second house may suggest that you are thinking about investing, you are thinking about making a purchase, maybe buying something, or you're looking at making more money, you're like brainstorming your financial questions. And then Mars in the fifth house can bring a sudden, maybe spending that involves a child or involves something when it comes to a romantic relationship. There may be some kind of tension between what you're planning to spend on and what your partner is planning to spend on. There may also be a disagreement about children or parenthood or even love, a disagreement in a creative context, maybe. So, like, I would say tensions about money and resources and maybe work matters with your creative or romantic partner, maybe a child. You may be realizing that a partner is spending too much, or you're realizing you're maybe even fighting over some kind of bad habit here. And if you're single, this could be a different kind of relationship, like your creative partner, or even a friend that you go out with and have a good time with. There might be some type of tension there. I would say be careful when it comes to spending money around this time. Mercury is the ruler. It's in the fourth house of home, family, living situation. So some of you might be thinking of investing into property, or maybe spending some money to help family members. There may be something like that. Watch out for being too competitive. Watch out for being too non-compromising, too sort of perfectionist about certain things. I am also seeing this as tension between you and your partner, as tension between your desire to get away and maybe professional demands as well. Radestina says UK, but I want to travel more. Tiger Tarot, my Mercury is in my 11th house of Sagittarius. Crazy too, because my sun is in the 11th house too. Yeah. Do people share a lot of secrets with you? A lot of gossip and stuff like that? I feel like people with Mercury in the 11th they tend to have other people bring stories their way. So, okay, yes, I think that's for Taurus rising. Conflicts involving money, conflicts involving priorities and relationships, children, maybe even some disagreements in creative or professional context are likely. Let me know if this resonates, and let's talk about Gemini rising next. For Gemini risings, we have Venus in the first house and a square to Mars in the fourth house. Venus in the first is very embodied. This is you wanting to be a diplomat, wanting to be a peacemaker, maybe being curious and playful and being like, what about if we do this? What about if we do that? You're maybe brainstorming some intellectual projects. How has Uranus entering your first house been? Do share. And then Mars in the fourth is either a tension in the home, something happens with your parent, with your child, where they're being, let's say you have a toddler and they are being just purposefully argumentative and saying no to you at every corner, and it just feels irritating. Or you're dealing with a family member, maybe also creating some problems, or even some tension in your home, in your in your living situation. Venus is in charge of your 5th and 12th houses. So the houses of pleasure, joy, and the houses of taking a break. And then Mars is in charge of your 6th house of work and 11th house of friendships. So, okay, so similarly, tensions that involve you having a good time, you maybe getting away and your work getting to you, or you wanted to do something and your friends disagreeing with you, some type of maybe even looking at Saturn in the 11th house, worry that your pursuits, your desires will not be approved of by other people, family or not family. Venus is the one that rises first, right? It's stronger in the square. So do continue following your bliss and exploring the passion projects and personal interests, but do be ready that maybe there is going to be some kind of friction as you do so. Radestina says, I love astrology. I believe that if everyone starts learning about it, less people would leave Earth and everything makes just so much sense. A few of my friends are healing their family traumas. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I think astrology came to me when my dad passed away, and it was really healing. Tiger Tarot says, unfortunately, I assume that's in response to people sharing their secrets with you. You're like, enough. I've had enough of your secrets. Take them away. Okay. Okay. So next we have Cancer rising. For Cancer rising, Venus is in the 12th house. Mars is in the 3rd house. By the way, what are your ascendants for the people who are watching? Just so I know, it's interesting to be like when you're reading for someone to know that you guys are here. Do share your rising signs. So if you are a Cancer rising, Venus is in your 12th house. I think to me, this also suggests that there's a strong desire to take a break, to just get away, to maybe dive into a book or, learn about astrology, just kind of connect with your go into like a quiet place and relax, whatever it might be for you. And then Mars in the third house, there is an accident that you're involved in, there's a conflict you're involved in, there's maybe some kind of I know a Cancer rising who is going to a hearing, right, that is related to the community, and so some kind of tension in the community, conflicts with siblings. Be careful. This transit is definitely for Cancer risings. Watch out for driving too fast. Watch out for getting into like fights in the line in grocery store. Watch out for like rushing places. Try to move slowly and pay attention to what irritates you. Pay attention to what like affects your anger, kind of irritates you and brings up your anger, because there may be some opportunity here to redirect and learn to speak up, right? Like that's where I'm thinking with Mercury being retrograde. It's currently in your second house of money and values and priorities. And so it's asking you to connect to what is truly important to you and then speak about it. Speak about it maybe more carefully, because we have this retrogradation and frictive, challenging energy, but speak about it nonetheless. And then if we think of Venus ruling your 11th house of community and friendships, and also ruling your 4th house of home and family, and Mars ruling your 5th house of personal joy and your 10th house of career, could there be maybe tension between professional aspirations and home, or again, desire for rest, between your personal priorities and what your community expects of you? While it might be hard to find a good balance at this time, it's not impossible. So definitely try to keep, creating peace in your life and communicating about things that are irritating you. Dawn and Spencer is a Gemini rising. How are you feeling? Are you feeling any friction between like yourself, your goals, and maybe family? Radastina, Gemini, 20%, Cancer, 80% plus Cancer, Venus. What's your rising sign, Radastina? You're saying you connect more with the Cancer side, sometimes connect more with Gemini predictions, sometimes Cancer. SP is a Leo rising, Bella Luna, Virgo. Saturated in Love is a Love rising. Dawn and Spencer says, I have been a mess for the last couple of weeks. I'm here trying to figure out how to resolve this. Can you treat yourself? Can you do something nice for yourself with Venus in the first house? Tiger Tarot, save the question for later. If I have some time at the end, I will answer it. I just want to keep moving through the rising signs so we get to talk about everyone and not take too much time, because I can get distracted. Trust me, I've got my Gemini moon. Okay. So now talking about Leo rising. For Leo, Venus in the 11th house is squaring Mars in the second house. Venus in the 11th, desire to get away with friends, desire to be a peacemaker in the collective. Maybe there's some networking opportunities, some travels, again, with friends. Something like Venus wants to find joy in interacting with other people. And you're a Leo rising, so you're already someone who is very good at getting along with people, at shining, making other people feel warm. And then Mars in the second house brings some friction when it comes to priorities, when it comes to values, when it comes to personal goals and finances, right? So this can show up as like you book tickets to go see a concert for you and your friends, and then one of your friends never really pays you back and sort of pretends that they will and never does. And finally you feel like maybe it's time to say something. Or maybe it's something little where you have a friend who's actually going through something difficult, and yes, it's frustrating a little bit for you, but you choose to overlook it on some level and you choose to maintain peace. I would still suggest speak up about it, express things in a kind way, because Mercury is in your first house. And through these situations of conflict, of disagreement, of maybe something bubbling to the surface, you have an opportunity to get to know yourself better and to understand what's of value to you, what's important to you. Venus rules your third house of communication and your 10th house of career, communication, business, siblings, right? And 10th house of public life. And Mars rules your fourth house of home, family, living situation, and your ninth house of education, travel. So again, travel is coming up, communicating about your feelings is coming up, professional friction, maybe tensions between what your work life expects from you and what's happening in the family. Maybe it's also like Venus in the 11th wants you to be really friendly, but then Mars in the second is like, I'm done with not getting paid enough for the work that I'm doing, right? Could this also be the case of like having to speak up of your worth? You're feeling like you deserve more. So do not hesitate to speak up. And for the Leo risings, do let me know how this resonates. Okay, SB says, yes, has been a lot of friction at the job. Marcerino, hi. You're saying you're an Aries rising. Okay, I did do an Aries rising. It's going to be, obviously this will be posted once we are done. I mean, maybe it's not as obvious, but it will be posted and there will be timestamps. Sorry, I'm trying to type and speak at the same time. Yeah, so there will be, you can rewatch it. Dawn says, oh, I have been pampering myself and lots of cardio while listening to podcasts. Thanks for making sense of all this. Of course, it's good you're taking care of yourself. Radistina says, my rising is between Gemini and Cancer. So somewhere in Gemini, because it can really only be one or the other. But if, whatever resonates with you, definitely listen to what resonates. I'm just, in the way I see astrology, it's like in one zodiac sign. Okay, so let's keep going. I think we have some Virgo risings with us. Virgo rising, for you, Venus is in the 10th, Mars is in the 1st. So Venus in the 10th wants to do things that are pleasant in the professional context. She really highlights the desire to take pleasure of the work that you're doing, right? There is a desire to maybe update your professional situation. There may be some opportunities even professionally, right? Some type of like partnership, relationship when it comes to your career. And then Mars in the 1st house might suggest that you yourself are standing in your own way by being too perfectionist, or by even being doubtful of yourself and feeling like maybe you do not deserve this. Or maybe it's, maybe you're feeling kind of restless and irritable and you're sort of driven to speak up about things that you're not happy with. Tensions at work are possible, right? Tensions with colleagues maybe can affect this sort of peace of mind. Venus rules your 2nd house of money, your money, your values, your priorities, and Mars rules your 8th house of their money, their values, their priorities. So there might be some kind of delays professionally with a raise or with some type of like financial delays. And then Venus also rules your 9th house of education, travel, publishing, legal matters. And Mars rules your 3rd house of communication, logistics. Yeah, like I wonder if there is some tension between like them and you in regards to either money or priorities or travel opportunities, or even some kind of ways of doing educational things that you do not agree with them. Do share, Bella Luna, Virgo rising. Please let us know if there is anything like this happening in your life, if you've noticed some kind of friction. I think Venus in the 10th does suggest that peace ends up getting the upper hand, but it might take a second. But I am curious how this resonates with you guys. Okay. Moving on to the lovely Libra rising. Are there any Libra risings that are watching with us? Do share. For Libra risings, Venus is in the 9th house, and Venus is, of course, your chart ruler. And Mars is in the 12th house, and Mars is the ruler of the house of partnership. So it can represent you versus them. For most of us, right? For most of us, it's this kind of like desire for peace versus somebody who's disrupting our peace, or we are feeling angry and we're disrupting someone else's peace. But here, Venus is in the 9th, and your sights are set on learning, your sights are set on traveling, your sights are set on opening yourself to new possibilities. You are sort of looking joyfully towards new beginnings, whatever they are for you, Libra rising. And then Mars in the 12th house is some type of something comes out of left field, maybe unexpectedly, maybe it's something you've been dealing with for the past month. Mars has been in your 12th house for a while, right? And this could be your self-defeating tendencies, right? This could be you versus you, your bad habits, your sleep schedule that is maybe skewed, or your tendency to overwork yourself, or your tendency to worry, your tendency to stress. So there is some kind of bad habit that's revealing itself that's affecting your joyful view of the future. There may be tension that your partner is experiencing. If Mars rules the house of relationships and Mars is the partner in the 12th house, something's happening to them and you're like, I can't really enjoy it. Or there's some kind of conflict with, like some type of tension, disagreement. Finances come up for review again with Venus ruling the house of partners, money, Mars ruling your finances. So there might be some kind of friction, disagreement there. Mercury is retrograding. It's in your 11th house. It's in Leo. So it definitely wants you to speak up and to express yourself and not kind of hide how you feel. But it could be, there could definitely be opportunities to sort of process some things and discuss some things and maybe address what's lurking in the dark 12th house, some sort of negative tendencies that you need to talk about. If we have any Libra risings in the room, do share. Otherwise, we're going to move on to the Scorpio rising. I don't know if my comments are updating. So next we have Scorpio rising. For Scorpio risings, Venus is in the 8th house. Mars is in the 11th house. Venus rules the partner. Mars rules you. Venus rules the 12th house of rest, spirituality, mental health. Mars rules the 6th house of work, health, and service. So Venus in the 8th highlights your desire to compromise and agree with other people, to maybe, 8th house is all about like other people, their resources. So I think Venus here would really want to figure things out. And Mars in the 11th, to me, reads as like friction on social media, friction with friends, maybe a friend creating some drama and you're being there trying to sort of figure it out and navigate things. Mars in the 11th might either encourage you to take a stand for something and to assert yourself, and maybe you're like expressing what you want and expressing your desires, or a friend who could be someone who like borrows a lot of money from you, or you realize takes advantage of you. And so the question is like, is it worth keeping the peace, or do you need to speak up and kind of address some kind of disagreement? Mercury, being the ruler of both Venus and Mars, is in your 10th house of career. So disagreements in the professional context are also possible, right? Venus in the 8th, you're the one who is this like peacemaker and troubleshooter and problem solver for other people. But then perhaps you're feeling like you're not being compensated enough, or like something needs to change and something needs to be transformed here. Tiger Tarot, my Mars is in the 10th house of Scorpio. That's a strong Mars. That's a lovely Mars to have. And yeah, so and if we're thinking that Venus is your partner, it's in the 8th house, it might suggest that the partner is also going through some kind of financial change, or they're making decisions about their professional future. And Mars is your chart ruler. So Mars is you in the 11th house. Maybe there's some tension between the future that your partner is exploring and how you see your social life unfolding, or what you see happening to you in the future. So there might be a need to examine that too. Do share if this resonates, how this resonates. I'd love to know. And next we have Sagittarius rising. For Sagittarius rising, Venus is in the 7th house of relationships and partnerships. Mars is in the 10th house of career, status, reputation, public life. So here we have tension between wanting to date, wanting to connect, wanting to be in a peaceful partnership, and Mars suggesting a certain ambition, desire, action professionally. So this could be another person, a boss, giving you a ton of work to do, and that sabotages your romantic plans. Or this could be the tension between your professional ambition and your relationship. This could also be a tension between what your partner expects of you and what you expect of yourself, right? Maybe some kind of disagreement there. Fly says Sag rising here in transit Mars is in conjunction with my Saturn. My North Node is also close. You have Virgo Saturn. So yeah, so like be careful when it comes to disagreements with bosses, because they can escalate disagreements with your romantic interest, with any even like partnerships in a business context. I wonder, right? Like this could be your business. This could be maybe your work. So if you have a business and you have a job, the two can get in a conflict with each other, or your business partner and you can disagree about things. Venus rules your 6th house and 11th house, and Mars rules your 5th house and 12th house, right? So we also have here this tension between like other people and self, between getting away and staying put. Do share if you're a Sagittarius rising, what has been coming up for you. So Fly, how has this been? Have you noticed any tension between like your work goals and relationship goals maybe? Otherwise, we will move on very shortly to the next sign. For Capricorn rising, Venus is in the 6th house of work, health, and service, and Mars is in the 9th house of education, travel, writing, legal matters, and publishing. Venus in the 6th would want to take pleasure in the work. It would want to get along in a professional context, right? It would want to be a peacemaker whenever there are any problems that are coming up. And then Mars in the 9th represents legal battles It represents conflicts with foreign people. It represents maybe disagreements about beliefs. So tensions with colleagues, right? Tensions with people you work with. Maybe if you work with some foreign people, there might also be like conflict around what they owe you, the documents they owe you that they're not sending on time. There may be some kind of visas, documents, publishing matters. If you're a writer, maybe tension with your publisher, even issues with like teachers, mentors, disagreements in that regard that you're addressing. I feel like as you're maybe attempting to take care of your health, or you're attempting to start a new workout routine, something comes up that is connected to education, to travel, even matters, even something connected to family, where like family needs you, with Mars ruling your fourth house, or a friend reaches out to you and they maybe disrupt your plans with like Venus in the sixth, ruling your fifth house of joy, ruling your 10th house of career. You're kind of trying to get the momentum going. You're trying to create these like breakthroughs with Uranus in the sixth house. So, of course, with Mercury in the eighth, do communicate. Eighth house represents kind of other people's goals. So, talking about where you each are coming from, trying to figure out some kind of solution to the problem would be helpful here. Oh, Tiger Tarot, Capricorn rising. Yay. How does this resonate? Let me know. Sagittarius rising fly says, I feel a bit stuck as far as my career goes. So maybe there is some opportunity to like figure out what's worth fighting for Sagittarius risings, right? With Mars in the 10th house. Maybe it's something like what are you passionate about? Yeah, and Tiger Tarot, do let me know if you feel like there is some kind of potentially friction involving education, teachers, travel matters, editors, publishing, foreign people, logistics, maybe even conflicts of beliefs when it comes to your maybe career or things affecting your plans. That would be interesting to know. Next, we have Aquarius rising. For an Aquarius rising, Venus is in the fifth house of romance, pleasure, parenthood, children, and Mars is in the eighth house of debts, loans, taxes, shared finances. So, okay, Venus wants to have fun. She suggests that maybe you're planning a trip, maybe you're planning a romantic getaway or a date, or you're even thinking about creating something, right? Fifth house could be a child, it could be business with your partner, or it could be anything really that brings you joy. And then Mars in the eighth house might bring a disruption in your finances. Well, eighth house is other people's finances, right? So maybe the person you're relying on creates some kind of I don't know, there could be a sign that they're taking a financial risk, that maybe you're thinking of like, like I said, going on a trip with your significant other, but Mars in the eighth, them or you kind of spending a bunch of money on something. So there might be some type of like conflict, power struggle around finances here, especially if you find out that your creative partner, your romantic partner is very reckless with money and they've made some unhealthy choices. So some of that may need to be addressed. Let's not forget that Mercury rules both Venus and Mars, and it's in the seventh house of relationships. So you're maybe talking about old fights, right? Addressing conflicts from before that you thought you were done with. So for sure, friction around money, around spending. Then Mars rules your house of career and your house of communication, business, everyday life, siblings, neighbors, and Venus rules your fourth house of home, family, and living situation, and your ninth house of education, travel, writing, legal matters. So there might be there might be some of this going on. So tension between maybe financial matters involving family, right? Maybe like conflict of values, like you had some plans, but your partner is too focused on their job or too sort of focused on helping their siblings. So like some kind of tension between what you believe and what they believe, I think, and maybe a need to discuss some matters involving children, some matters involving money, clear some things in communication is coming up for me. Astrolofax, your mom is an Aquarius rising. How do you think that this will show up for her? Do share. And next we have the beautiful Pisces rising. For Pisces rising, Venus is in the fourth, Mars is in the seventh. So Venus in the fourth suggests that you desire peace in the home. You desire maybe some time with family. You want some quiet time. Maybe your home feels like a sanctuary right now, and you're sort of thinking about like new beginnings in the home. And Mars in the seventh might bring conflict with your partner. And so your peace in the home gets disturbed by some disagreement that you're having. Disagreement might involve money. It might involve travel. I feel like we have similar topics coming up for a few signs in the row because the planets rule similar houses. Maybe there is some friction about how much time they spend with their family or their relationship with the family. Maybe there is some friction about where you live and you disagreeing about that, right? And trying to figure out a better place for you two to be in. Venus rules partners' money, Mars rules your money, Venus rules communication, siblings, short trips, immediate environment, Mars rules faraway travel. So this could definitely come up as like a conflict between you and your partner about travel. Maybe your partner wants you to go on a trip, but you're like very focused on being careful when it comes to spending money right now. Maybe it's some kind of educational matter too. Maybe it's a conflict with your teacher, your mentor, that also takes a peace of mind. Yeah, disagreements with family members are also possible here. Something happening in the relationship that affects your peace. Feeling like maybe there's matters that where you lack understanding in a relationship. Even matters involving your lease, right? Or your home or your landlord. There might be some kind of conflicts that you need to resolve there. That's what I think for Pisces risings. If we have any Pisces risings watching, do let me know. But otherwise, we've done all 12 signs. The lives always take longer than it would take otherwise to do. But I think it's kind of fun and I get to interact with you guys. Tiger Tarot Capricorn Rising says many projects that I tend to juggle along with my day job creates a lot of setbacks in my creative endeavors. Things don't move as fast as I hope. A lot of patience required. LOL, energy gets burned. Yeah, we will all deal with some juggling, right? Like even for me this morning with this whole Instagram thing, it was like, oh, I guess I'm going to do this. I guess now I have to solve this problem, right? With something I completely did not expect. And now it like affects portion of my day. So be ready for issues to come up. Be ready for your attention to be taken in a different direction. And thank you for watching. Again, if you want any personal guidance, book a reading at anastasiadoesastrology.com. Register for my course or pick up any of my lovely candles. This is Exalted Moon. Exalted Moon. It has beautiful silver foil, and it has a soothing energy, which can be good for the next few days this week. Thank you for watching. Enjoy your day, and do share if you have any thoughts on what this might bring for you. We'll talk soon. Bye for now.